One of my favorite characters in the RWBY series, as well as the favorite of many others, is Qrow. As we've watched him throughout the series and learned more about his character, it's easy to see that he, at his core, is a very caring person, especially when it comes to Ruby and Yang, his two nieces. He's supported these two more than they will ever realize, Ruby in particular, all the way from when they were kids, when Yang had the brilliant idea of taking her, 2-3-year-old sister out in a cart to go search for her mother, and then, ends up getting attacked by Grimm. Qrow was watching out for them and was there to save the day. All the way up through when Ruby was fighting at Signal Academy, Qrow probably spent years training her in the way of being a huntress, is a major influence on her in that her fighting style completely comes from him, as well as probably other personality aspects, probably some of her humor as well, all the way up to volumes 4 and 5 when Ruby set out with Team Ranger. Qrow was essentially their guiding hand whether they realized it or not. He'd shadowed them for months, taking out hordes of Grimm just to make sure their journey was a little bit easier. And then once he joined up with them, he was essentially their leader throughout Mistral and all of Volume 5, of course, up until the events of the beginning of Volume 6. Now, Qrow is very skilled, very caring, and very kind, but he is also loyal, not only to his family and those he cares about, but also to a cause that he believes in. For example, the cause that Ozpin introduced him to. The fight against Salem. Ozpin, or Qrow, devoted himself to Ozpin wholeheartedly. Body and soul, he believed in this mission. That was his purpose in life. Of course, up until the beginning of Volume 6, where everything changed. Now, it's a bit of an understatement to say that Qrow's character has had its ups and downs throughout the RWBY series, as he's probably the one person who's reached the lowest point emotionally that we have seen so far in the entire series itself. He has many good qualities, being kind, caring, and loyal, as I've already mentioned, but he has one very glaring negative quality about him. That he is always very hard on himself, to the point of self-hatred at times. And this stems from his semblance, the very core of his being, the manifestation of his very own soul is misfortune. He brings bad luck to everyone around him, himself included, friend and foe alike. It is constantly active, he has no way to turn it off, and it affects everyone indiscriminately. Whether it's something just a minor inconvenience like making someone drop a glass, or something as severe as causing a giant wooden beam to fall on someone, potentially killing them, and that person, as we saw in the series, is the person he probably cares about most in this world. What happened with Ruby in the fight against Tyrion. So yeah, it can go from 0 to 90 real quick and he has no control over it. This has given Qrow from a very early age a sense of worthlessness, that he was a cursed person because of his semblance. And of course that probably manifested itself in his drinking. He isolated himself from those he cared about so that he wouldn't negatively affect them, etc. But this sense of worthlessness was kind of subdued by the fact that he gained a purpose in life from Ozpin. Once he was introduced to the truth of the world and thought that he could do some good, well, he devoted himself for over 2 decades to this cause. Until, of course, he found out the real truth of the world. All of this effort that he had put in was all of a sudden for a fight that was lost from the get-go, that he could never win. So he felt completely betrayed, and this sense of hopelessness that he had once felt came back tenfold and sent him on the path spiraling downwards to self-destruction. Honestly, if left unchecked during Volume 6, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Qrow drank himself into oblivion, which I think he tried to do it a couple times as we saw throughout the series. He would have just ended up drinking himself to death. If it wasn't for Ruby, the one person he cared about most snapped him out of it at the end of Volume 6. She put her foot down and pretty much told him, get your shit together, you're staying here, you're gonna listen to Jean's plan, you're gonna go along with this, and Ruby essentially took charge of the entire group at that point, and has been the leader from there on out. And at the end of Volume 6, we saw Qrow, put down the alcohol. And since then, I honestly don't think we've seen him take a single drink, which is a real testament to Qrow, because being as much of an alcoholic as he was, Going cold turkey like that probably can't be very easy. But RWBY put him on the path to self-recovery, and that is where his character is going to be continuing to progress throughout Volume 7, throughout Atlas, and hopefully throughout the rest of the series. Now, he has many support networks, or at least a few of them still. He's going to have RWBY and Yang and the rest of the team to rely on, now being reunited with Ironwood. That's probably given him another anchor to his past, someone else that knows the truth of the world that he can rely on. As well, Ozpin's probably going to come back at some point this volume. Maybe Qrow and Ozpin can have a little bit of a heart-to-heart and, you know, work things out to a point where they can come to an understanding at the very least. But in Volume 7, Episode 3, I feel like we were given another hint as to help Qrow become sort of a lot less hard on himself and maybe move past what his semblance is. Because he's hated his semblance from the moment he figured out what it was, and that feeling has never gone away. Even though he's in the path to recovery, maybe not an alcoholic anymore, he still, in that conversation he had with Clover, which I think is going to be the main factor in his recovery, he had stated that I don't work well with teams. I haven't worked as a team for a long time. It's better that I work alone because my semblance is misfortune. But Clover, his semblance is the exact opposite of Qrow's. In theory, it's the exact equal and opposite, being good fortune or good luck, something that can absolutely cancel out Qrow's semblance as well. And it seems as though we saw in that episode that Clover may have a bit more of control over his semblance than what Qrow what Qrow has currently. And opens up some opportunity that Qrow might be able to learn from Clover in gaining some more control of his semblance. Because Clover, with his semblance being good fortune, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always active. It kind of seemed that way as it was in the episode, but it also seemed that he could increase it when he fought against the Geist. He tapped the little four-leaf clover charm that he had on his jacket and was able to make one lucky shot against the Geist, or the Geist Grim, to pull it out of the rock body that it had, and then it could be defeated. With that being the case, we already know that, or Carrie Shawcross has confirmed that Qrow can also amplify his semblance if he so desires. At that point, he would use aura to amplify his semblance and amplify the bad luck around him. In fact, he probably used that in the fight against Tyrion to cause him to fall through the roof at one point, etc. But I'm guessing Qrow, fighting as a team, won't really want to activate his semblance in that effect. And one thing we don't actually know about these semblances is if either Qrow or Clover, when Clover increased his own luck, well, he increased his own luck. He didn't increase luck around him indiscriminately, otherwise it could have potentially increased the luck of the Geist too, and that wouldn't have really gone well for the plan overall, but he was able to increase his own luck. So maybe Clover can help Qrow get a better handle on his semblance, maybe move past that sense of worthlessness and become, you know, an actual happy person to his core at some way, shape, or form at some point. Even if that's not the case, I think that because Clover had mentioned it's a shame that Qrow no longer wants to work as a team anymore, or with anyone as a team, I think that Clover and Qrow might eventually end up forming a two-man team at some point throughout the series. Now, I don't think there's going to be much of an Atlas left after the overall arc of Atlas. I have a feeling that the overall city is going to be pretty much turned on its head, or maybe come crashing to the ground, in other words. But the government of Atlas and the way that Atlas is structured now is going to probably be dissolved and have to be reworked after this entire thing is over. So I don't know if the Ace Ops are necessarily going to be this elite unit as they are now. Someone might end up being a traitor, some people might end up dying, you know, things are going to change. And if that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised seeing Qrow and Clover forming a two-man special ops team at some point. Maybe not necessarily working under Ironwood, but working alongside Ironwood and Ozpin in the fight against Salem, maybe doing reconnaissance missions or something like that, in which case this would be the one team, or the one pairing, the one person that Qrow could work alongside and be completely comfortable fighting alongside and not have to worry about his semblance at all. Because Clover's semblance of good fortune could cancel out Qrow's misfortune. And so anyone around him, ally ally and enemy alike, would have essentially neutral luck, neither good nor bad, and just be, you know, their base form, which would be very comforting for Qrow to have. He wouldn't have to worry about, you know, RWBY or Yang or any of the other teammates that he has falling under the spell of his misfortune. And with that being the case, I could see them forming a team. Of course, that would mean that Qrow would no longer be a mainstay in the series, which would be unfortunate, but it'd be good for his character moving forward. Now, there's another thing I also have to address, that if there is a traitor in the Ace operatives, it could be Clover, and in fact he's one of the two I kind of suspect. I either suspect Harriet or Clover being the traitor, so if there is a traitor. There might not be a traitor, I'm not certain on anything of that in that sense yet, but if Clover is the traitor, and he does end up getting, you know, kind of forming a brotherly bond with Qrow, that helps him with his semblance, makes Qrow more comfortable with his own semblance, and Qrow actually comes to trust another huntsman for the first time since, you know, well, RWBY and Yang, of course, but Team Stark, that he was comfortable working alongside to that degree, then that's going to take a toll on Qrow, for sure, being betrayed by someone else who he finally came to trust, as, you know, what happened with Ozpin, etc. That probably caused some flashbacks. Now, Qrow has made some massive progress in his character, you know, stopping drinking, and is relying on RWBY and Yang and Ironwood. If Clover did end up betraying him, if Qrow did, you know, become closer to Clover in the fact that he trusted him and was fighting alongside him, etc., but then was betrayed, that would be a huge testament to the progress that Qrow has made by the fact that that wouldn't send him spiraling downwards, that the fact that he wouldn't consider himself worthless or anything like that, that he would be hurt by it, of course, because everyone would be hurt by a betrayal, but that he would be able to stand strong, know that he has people who care about him, and know that he himself is not worthless, that he can still move forward. I think that that would be a huge testament to Qrow's character and his recovery moving forward. But, you know, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think the future holds for Qrow in the arc of Atlas and beyond? Do you think that Clover is going to play a fairly significant role in his recovery? I don't think that he's going to be the main portion of his recovery. That's going to be reserved for RWBY and Yang, of course, his close family, but Ironwood's going to play a role, Ozpin will as well, when they can actually work things out, which they really need to, and then, of course, Clover, with their semblances being very equal and opposites, they're going to have more interaction. It seems pretty obvious, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you have any other theories and ideas about Qrow or the Ace Ops, I'd be really interested in hearing them. So yeah, I look forward to hearing what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.